All right, you are live.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, Colin just said he's going to try to make the meeting, but he'll be late. Well, we already know he's going to be late, so hopefully he'll be able to join us before we get to the really meaty stuff. So seeing no, oops, we do have one member of the public.
It's Harrison Levins, my coworker.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he has any gripes or complaints. He just wants to
Listen.
In.
Okay, super. So since we have no public input, we'll move to the approval of the January 4th minutes, which were circulated with the agenda. Does, first of all, do we have somebody to move to accept them? Tanner, and somebody to second? Oh, Sam, I think you got your hand up first. So Christine, we'll save you for another motion. Okie doke. Were there any additions or corrections? Okay, if not, everyone in favor, either say aye or wave your hand or something or other. Thank you. Okay, and that brings us to the chair's report. Oops, which I have here. First of all, as I think most of you know, we meet with the mayor and a few selected other people on a sort of semi-annual basis. However, we're probably about 8 months overdue by now due to COVID. However, we are now on the mayor's calendar for Friday, February 19th, excuse me, at 9:30 a.m. And what we generally do is we use the strategic plan and the most current evaluation of it as a basis for our talk with the mayor. And Leisha, his chief of staff, will be there, and the new director of TMP, who should be there on day 4 of his employment with the city. So if you are able to attend on a Friday morning at 9:30, it will be a Zoom call and it should be only a half hour. Can you let me know? Well, actually, could you let me know right now so I can let the mayor's administrative assistant know? Tanner. Anybody else available then?
Are we allowed to?
Sure.
Pedestrian?
Audrey?
I would love to be. Looks like Barbara too. Yeah.
Barbara.
I think I should be available. I'll
Okay,
know
well,
closer to
I realize you have a day job, so if it turns out you can't, you can't. Okay.
That's
so
cool.
I have Tanner, Audrey, Barbara, Sam, and I'll get a hold of Colin and the other Barbara and see if they want to attend as well. All right. Thank you very much.
You have me on there too, right?
Pardon?
I said you have me on there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Confirm that's February 9th at 10:30 a.m. Is that right?
19th.
Oh, 19th.
It's the Friday of what is a 4-day week for a lot of people because of President's Day.
Okay. At 10:30 a.m.
No, 9:30 a.m.
9:30 a.m. Glad I
Yes.
checked.
All right. Well, I'll send out a confirming email and then you will get a Zoom invitation like you do for this meeting. Okay. Okay. Last month we had a presentation on the POCD, and I meant to send out a summary that I had created, which I did send out with the agenda for tonight, and I just wanted to point it out. Close that down. You should be able to see my screen. And
Can you make it slightly larger for those of us who are struggling with our prescription?
probably. Hang on. View. Zoom. Um, how's that? Okay, and basically what I did is I went through the POCD and I just searched for anything that had the Bike Walk Commission. And if you haven't had a chance to read through them, you can do that at your leisure. But you'll notice that we are really not the lead on any of these things. So this will just give you a flavor of what it is we're ultimately going to have some input into. And obviously we will keep you posted as the other groups begin their work on those particular projects. And next item is that I have delivered some more of our safety tips, the two-sided card that has bicycle safety tips on one side and pedestrian on the other. The library took another 200 in Spanish and 200 in English. And what they do is when you reserve a book and you go and pick it up, they give it to you in a paper bag and they slip those in as well. So again, if any of you know of any organizations that would like any in either English or Spanish, please let me know, because I still have quite a few more in my bedroom closet. Okay, our next item is Tracy School, and a couple of months ago, I believe it was November, the president of their PTA came and made a presentation to us. And Barbara McCabe, Colin, and I did meet with her at the Tracy School on Friday, January 8th to observe dismissal. And Nikki, the PTA president, did say it was an unusually small number of cars. But the problem is, and let's see if I can get down here. The problem is that the cars, this is Camp Street, this is the school. This is where the kids are picked up. And what happens is the cars come in here and then there's not much stacking room. So what they end up doing is they end up being out here on Camp Street and on this side of Camp Street. And there is also parking on this side of Camp Street. So there's basically only one lane and cars from both directions have to use the same one lane, which fortunately they so far have not run into each other. And there is a staff member who is here helping the children who need to cross, and he also tries to sort of monitor the traffic. But it's definitely not a very good situation. So the one suggestion that we made to them is they might think about moving, oh, and I don't know why, Colin did a really nice graph that had all of the arrows in here, which didn't come through, unfortunately.
Yeah,
But
there-
anyhow, what we suggested that they might think about doing is for dismissal to reverse these two lanes. So to have the traffic come in what is normally the exit. And again, they have a person out here, so this is a doable thing. And that way they could have the cars come all the way around the parking lot and they would have a lot more stacking room for cars. And right now, only about half of the children actually attend school in person. So based on what we saw when we were there, I think this should pretty much eliminate the stacking on Camp Street while they have a relatively small number of children. It's not going to be a permanent solution, but at least it should take the pressure off them for now. Unfortunately, they were about ready to try it out and they had 20 staff members quarantined. So because it requires a number of people. We have a staff member here, we have a staff member here, we have staff members here helping the children into their cars. So they were not able to start it. They were planning to start it today, but obviously that didn't happen either. So hopefully sometime between now and our next meeting, they will actually get a chance to try this out and let us know how that works. Also, would like to report that Johanna Zanvetter, who's the transportation coordinator for the Norwalk Public Schools and probably knows more about traffic patterns around schools than anybody else walking around, and Mike Yosak are planning to get involved. Johanna has some personal issues, so they probably won't get to it till the end of March. But we certainly very much look for their input. And as I reported last month, we also were trying to get the police involved. And Deputy Chief Walsh and I have had some email conversations, and he's been very helpful. And he's somewhat familiar with the situation because his wife is the assistant principal of Tracy School. So I think we have everybody working on this, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with an even better solution than reversing the traffic flow during drop off and pickup. So stay tuned for more on that. And the last item is Paul Sotnick called me that the DPW is finally finalizing the plan for East Wall Street. And what they would like to do, this is East Wall here, okay, and it goes up the hill past the Historic Society to East Avenue, just to orient you where we are.
I don't think we see it, Nancy.
Oh,
Did you share a different document on your screen?
yeah, so I have to stop and start
You have
again.
to stop share on this and then start with it. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
I'm only learning myself.
Okay, here we go. There we go. Is that better? Okay. So this is East Wall Street, where it goes up past the Historic Society to East Avenue. This is High Street, which is one way this way, and Night Street, which is one way the other way. They both go out to the Post Road. And where Paul is talking about is this area right here. And they're planning on bumping it out and making it a little bigger. And they would also like to put in a bike rack. And the picture of the bike rack was included in your agenda. And I think rather than sharing, I will, let you take a look at your leisure. But hopefully that whole thing will be done this summer, which would be really nice.
So Nancy, does that bump out into Wall Street? Because
Correct. So
there's a
it will,
restaurant there.
yeah, it will narrow Wall Street, which will hopefully slow the traffic down.
Ah. Oh,
And they're
interesting.
putting in a whole bunch of planters and decorative lamps, and it's going to be really very, very attractive.
I think it's part of Complete Streets.
Well, yeah, I guess it would be.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. And that's it for me. So now let me stop sharing here so you can see me larger. Are there any questions or comments? It's been kind of a busy month, but it's good. Okay, next up is Greg Poselli, and one of the items he normally reports to us on is where we are with Highland Avenue. And since that is on old business, I've asked him to hold that part of his report till we get down to the Highland Avenue item. So Greg, what else you got for us today?
Yeah, so we'll wait for that for later. Keep this moving here. So the connectivity grant, we're still communicating with the state and coordinating with them as far as 136 and the connectivity grant to try to get that finalized and get all the field work inspected and move forward with that. Haven't really heard anything regarding Strawberry Hill. I know, at the intersection at Route 1 and the lane structure there. So we'll have to wait and coordinate with the state on that as well and see what their plans are. And they'll probably have some public outreach as well. So we'll keep everybody posted on that going forward. Seaview Avenue, we've kind of begun. Obviously, last meeting I told you what we were working with Steve Kleppen, planning and zoning, and we were going to start coordinating with the adjacent property owners, which we have already. And, we're just going to be getting their comments and, seeing what they have for us and see some what they want to do, as far as what, hear their input and kind of go from there and see how we can tweak the designs at all and get their review of it as well. So we'll be keeping you posted.
Do you
on
have
that.
any sense yet, Greg, of whether they seem to be favorable or unfavorable? Is it too early to tell?
Yeah, I mean, I think they are favorable. I think, they're actually, they're also going through a little bit of a transition, with COVID now and, how they're going to make their adjustments to it. So I think there's a opportunity there that, can benefit, while they're doing their adjustments, the city can also make some adjustments on the street as well. So from my short talks with Steve already, he said that we should be able to engage them and see what they have for us. So they seem pretty open to it. So
Great.
it should be all right. But we'll let you know how that goes as we continue to engage them with the improvements. But that's pretty much it as far as bike walk is concerned for right now. And then we'll talk about the other topic later in the meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Greg.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Greg? Okay, Judd, I know the bike plan committee meeting last week was postponed,
Yep.
but your mom got her vaccination, so that's good.
Did, yep. Yeah. She did the first one, so I don't have anything to report, but we're meeting on the 11th of this month, right, Greg?
Correct. Yep. We'll meet on the 11th.
So Tanner, do you think you could make that?
Sorry, unmuted. It's at 4 p.m.
I think, right, Greg?
Yeah. 4 to 5. Yep.
Yep, I can do that.
Okay. Sam?
I believe I can, yeah. Everything is very up in the air for me until about a week out. So,
Okay.
yeah.
How
Right.
many commissioners are planning to attend?
Well, right now, I think you have Nancy and Tanner and myself confirmed, right?
Okay.
Oh, Chris, you'll make it? That'd be great.
All right. Well, we need to, be careful. And I know Nancy, I know you know better than I do probably with the number of commissioners that, because then we have a quorum then at that point if we have too many,
Okay, sorry, I can't make it. I have a school club. I forgot.
Okay, we can talk about that, Greg.
Okay.
So that's my plan. That's my report for the bike plan.
Okie doke. Thank you, Judd. Barbara McCabe has nothing to report. Pedestrian plan, Audrey and Barbara.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, the pedestrian committee has been quite busy and has an ambitious agenda these days. And our action plans are growing. We created a winter walking safety tips article with a list of suggested gear for folks to wear when they're walking at night, and even for their dogs. The article addressed 3 audiences: pedestrians, motorists, and homeowners. We all have our responsibilities to keep people safe. So we submitted that to the press. I don't think as yet it's been published. We also want to put it online, and we've started speaking to the city, the health department and communications department about getting a landing page for the pedestrian committee, and not only a boilerplate or more static page of information about us and what we're doing, helpful resources, et cetera, but also more current information that can change maybe seasonally. We also are planning in the spring for walk audits to gather further information. We're going to work towards locating maybe 5 to 6 areas that coincide with paving and improvements. It's going to involve training of volunteers and working with local leaders in each district. Barbara, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think we're trying to achieve is a tighter feedback loop, certainly between departments that are working on walkability issues, but then also with the stakeholders, so that if we know we have a project coming up, we can hold a walk audit and get feedback from the public about what might be needed to be included in that. And the engineers can take that into account when they're planning. I know we have some upcoming projects on George, Witch Hunt, Rowayton, West Rocks. There's some low hanging fruit where we already probably have funding allocated. And what is needed is making sure that we're all on board with the plan. I want to make sure that we're interfacing well with DPW, because when they're doing the paving program, they have such an opportunity to impact and improve walkability as well. We also, we had a meeting with George Sirenides, and we're able to make a presentation regarding the results of the surveys and the crash data and how that might help prioritize the work. And he very kindly reached out and requested that we have a member from DPW and from the Newark Police Department to join our committee, so that we could talk about walkability in the DPW work, and also have an officer that we could be part of the conversation when we're discussing driver behavior and enforcement of traffic rules, because a lot of the feedback in both of the surveys revolved around distracted driving, speeding, and right-of-way issues. So that was something else we were trying to dig into.
Yeah, the presentation that kudos to Barbara for pulling together a lot of data, focuses on the safe routes to school, making sure kids can get to school safely, and also the state roads that have problems, the state roads that run through Norwalk. So those are sort of the 2 key areas that this presentation focuses on. We also, besides winter walking safety tips, we do plan to roll out some articles that speak to the public, let them know that we thank them for filling out the surveys, that we've gathered together the information from the surveys, and letting people know that we hear them and their concerns and what we're doing going forward. So it is sort of interfacing with many different constituencies of the city, which is actually very exciting to me. We also provided a testimony statement to the state of Connecticut, and that is there's a bill called HB 5429. It's an act concerning pedestrian safety, Vision Zero Council, speed limits in municipalities, fines and charges for certain violations, the Greenways commemorative account, and maintenance work zone and school zone safety enforcement. So we, through the pedestrian committee, put together a statement to submit to our state representatives in favor of this particular safety bill. So that's kind of it in a nutshell right now. Barbara, I don't know if there's anything I left out, but yeah.
Yeah, we as Audrey touched on, what we want to do now is take the presentation that we've created and meet with the stakeholders who can help us move it forward, in particular our state legislature and representatives, and they have agreed to do that. We're just working out of time. And we also would like to enroll, as Audrey mentioned, our district reps in some of these district walk audits, so that they can take some ownership and have that opportunity for a feedback loop with their constituents as well.
Yeah, we're looking for pedestrian safety and also connectivity, and also making bringing the public more out of doors and safely to walk and be in nature and for exercise. And it's just part of a holistic view.
Okay, thank you, ladies.
Welcome.
Okay, next up, Christine, you have anything on safety and education?
Not really. I just want to, that's very impressive, Audrey and Barbara, about your plan. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. A lot of hard work. Yeah. And Nancy, I just, it's kind of, I just had this realization that, my title here is the education and safety and education, but I feel like I'm a little between the pedestrian committee and the bike plan, and I don't know, and I'm like kind of alone with this committee. So I brought it up before. I don't know how to get, some support, and because of course.
Christine, I can join you.
Oh, geez, Barbara. Well, as Nancy said, I guess you have a lot on your plate. I appreciate it. I would like to, I know, Tanner's working on social media and stuff, to have kind of an outreach to the community so they know they can join and participate and help, that they can play an active role, because I think people want to get involved. They don't know how to get involved. And, Barbara, I appreciate your gesture. I'm a bike educator, with the League of American Cyclists, and I can run classes, and the COVID has kind of, been a disruption to that. But the spring is coming, cyclists are out. And
So there's a parent who really wanted to join the bicycling committee and work on that. Matt Weglian, did you guys get his information? Because he might be a great person to work with you. He and his wife have been very involved with the schools, and it might be a perfect marriage as well. Oh, sorry, Tanner.
Yeah, didn't he show up at one of these meetings a couple of months ago? I connected with him afterwards. We were going to go on a ride together, and then it got too cold. But I follow him on Strava now, so I remember
He's great. And so I think, he's got energy and capacity in a way that I don't. So tag him in.
Yeah, and I mean, Christine, you have, until we ran into COVID, you have been on behalf of the commission working with Rec and Parks too, with their summer program to get some bicycle and pedestrian safety. And so, I think you're doing what you should be doing. And, like so many things, this whole COVID business has made life a little more challenging.
yeah, thank you. I just would love to hit the ground running once the warm weather comes, because people are going to be really wanting to get out and about, and the bike, craze. I want to kind of harness that. But yeah, so thank you. It's hard with my full-time job, I'll be honest,
Right.
like everybody here who works, and it's very time consuming, my work. But anyway, I'll try. Nancy,
Okay,
to talk about
hang on a minute, Sam.
do you want me to talk about the public hearing now, or we're going to do that at the end of new business?
Yeah, it'll come up later.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Nothing
Okay.
else.
yeah, Sam?
Christine, I wanted to say that I do hope that I can help. I have not been very helpful right now. Harrison, who is somewhere on this call, can attest that this is the busiest I've ever been. But I will write you an email right now. I do have some ideas on how to access students and inspire them to engage more in transportation via bicycle. That I think will really resonate with Gen Z and millennials. So I'll try to help.
Yeah, Teresa?
Okay, thanks, Sam. A
This
lot.
is just an observation, is that I think maybe there is some pretty significant overlap between several of the subcommittees or the different subgroups. And so it might be worth an examination to see, maybe, joining forces with communication or either the bike group or the walking group, and just making education and outreach part of, a carve out of that might help both, stretch capacity, but also like reduce, you know, multiple people doing, you know, very similar things. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you,
I have a-
Teresa.
I
Yeah,
have a
Audrey?
comment too. Yeah. Besides reaching people who are actually doing the active transportation, we, one facet that I don't know the answer is to reach motorists, to remind them that people, certainly pedestrians have right of way and all that, that people are, especially in the spring, there are people out walking and biking now that it's springtime, and they really need to pay attention and be mindful of the fact that there are people that they need to share the road. And I'm not sure how to reach motorists exactly, except maybe through social media. But I think that's one piece of the pie.
Okay, Barbara?
Sorry, I was going to express sort of some of that as well, because as I worked on the pedestrian work, I know when Brian and I met with the Rhoton School Governance Council and PTOs at the end of February last year before everything shut down, they articulated they had this extraordinary plan from 2009 through 2012 to help biking also. And I didn't know what my jurisdiction was regarding that because I'm pedestrian committee. So I just wondered if there was an opportunity, maybe quarterly, for us to have a joint meeting to talk about the areas where our work has overlapped.
I'm sure, Judd, I think you'd be amenable to that.
Yep. I'm kind of wondering, do we need a dedicated safety committee? Because the pedestrian committee, just by default, is thinking about safety, and the bike committee is, you know, we always have that in mind too. And I just wonder if we actually need it. I mean, it sounds great, but there's some overlap that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, might just simplify things and allow Chris, say, instead of chairing that subcommittee, to work on both the bike routes and the pedestrian committee.
Okay, rather than having a separate committee.
Right.
I think it would be great to, you know, for me coming into this on a newer basis, really just trying to serve what my constituents have asked for. The more expertise that we can have on our committee as to these safety issues, because I'm not an expert yet. I'm like studying hard, but that would be very helpful, certainly to me.
Yeah, I would encourage good discussion and overlapping safety issues. Tanner and I actually met a couple of years ago when I started the Norwalk Citizens Traffic Safety Committee, and because we were trying to address the issues of I would say mainly driver behavior, because it does affect our ability to walk and bike safely, because we're sharing the same roadways, at least right now, until they're separated perhaps one day. But yeah, it's a big issue. And I know parents don't feel safe having their kids walk or bike to school and drive them more, which creates congestion at school. There's a lot of issues. So addressing safety and having a police officer, at least on the pedestrian committee, is a great idea in terms of what's involved in enforcing the laws.
Yeah, I don't think we're suggesting that we do away with safety and education. I think what Judd is suggesting is that perhaps Christine and others could work on those issues, but as part of the bike and pedestrian committees, rather than having a separate committee. And, you know, over time, the committees we've had have changed their focus or gone out of existence or come into existence. So, you know, Christine, if you're comfortable with that, maybe we'll take Judd's suggestion and fold your, instead of having a formal committee for that, just use your expertise on the other two committees.
Yeah, that's fine. And yeah, Teresa, thank you for articulating what I wasn't able to articulate. Yeah, or maybe my focus can be just bike education, but I'm happy. I love safety and I love pedestrian and bicycles. So Nancy, we can kind of percolate this, and maybe next time, you know, maybe we can talk offline or something.
Okay, will do. Thank you, and thank you, Teresa, for your suggestion. Okay, next up, Tanner with social media.
Yeah, so hi, I don't have much to report here. We are still working on a larger scale social media strategy. But in the meantime, we've continued to post, thanks to Julia and Deborah, our former commissioner, for continuing to post alongside me. Since I reported 2 months ago, since I missed the last meeting, we've had about a dozen posts. So that's like 1.5 per week. I just posted the other day about how CDOT released a comprehensive pedestrian safety strategy. It's like a 24-page PDF, I think. It's quite accessible. It's got lots of infographics, a lot of things that I'm just gonna screenshot and share on Facebook with a link to the safety strategy. There's a lot of eye-opening data in there about how, for example, safety has gotten worse on the streets. The pedestrian casualties and fatalities have gone up in recent years. Things that I think the public ought to know, and also some encouraging things in there as well. Strategies that CDOT is going to employ on a statewide basis. So I think not only would it be good to share with the public, but also good reading for the commission at large. And that kind of brings me to my other point I wanted to make, which is loosely related to social media, but more under the communications umbrella, and that is communications within the commission. As some of you might remember, I've been hard at work on a thread about the Freedom of Information Act and how it restricts us to in the kind of communication that we can have within the commission. So I called this month, I called the statewide Freedom of Information Office, whose job it is to help people to understand the law and to abide by it. And I said, we as a commission, we kind of have this norm where we don't send emails to the entire group because we don't want to be in violation of the act. And the gentleman that was helping me, I don't remember his name, explained that it's not necessary to avoid all email communication to the group, but to avoid that becomes deliberation. Like when we're having back and forth discussion about a topic, that's the kind of thing that we should reserve for the meeting. But if we want to, for example, coordinate a meeting time, or if we want to just share information with the rest of the commission that doesn't turn into deliberation, that's completely fine. The idea is that the work of the commission, in particular, the discussion of the commission, should happen in person, synchronously, in a meeting like this, so that the public can observe in real time. But that doesn't mean that we can't communicate at all over email. So that's my report for social media and communications.
Thank you, Tanner. And it's if the overall strategy plan is going to take a few more months to distill, if you have some time, or you and your committee, you might want to take a look at our website, because I think it might need a little refreshing in the interim.
Mm-hmm. Sure, I do. I know that on the strategic plan, we have a goal to update it once a quarter. Yep. And it hasn't been updated this quarter. So I'll make sure that in the month of, well, I guess we have 2 months to the end of the quarter, but I'll prioritize that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Tanner. Okie doke. Anybody have any other comments or questions for Tanner? Alrighty, and next up is Deanna stand-in, which is me, for the strategic plan. And again, this was distributed with your agenda, and I'm going to try sharing it. Alrighty. So,
quickly, but before we present this, do you mind turning off all of the paragraph markings on here?
Oh.
If you go up to File, top left.
Oh, there's a little icon, but it's.
Oh, that was the wrong one. It's Home, not File. My bad.
Yeah. There's a little icon here somewhere.
Yeah, if you click on the Home tab up top on the ribbon,
yep.
It is next to File. I was wrong.
Yeah, but it's over here, which I can't get to at the moment. Hang on a minute. No, it's not over there.
Yeah, top
Um,
left.
It's the little paragraph symbol, but I'm
Yeah.
not seeing it.
Click on home in the top left,
Yep.
and then it should be top middle.
Yep, there it is. Thank you.
Yep.
Okie doke. There's not a whole lot that's changed, so I'm going to go through these somewhat quickly, but please, if you have anything to add, feel free to chime in. Our first objective has to do with the east-west and north-south bike route connections, and as Greg reported earlier, we're still working on the 136 east-west route, and he's also working on the north-south route. So we're sort of stuck waiting for the state. The next one is around the city's master plan. We set out an objective of determining the need for additional sheltered bicycle parking. We do have the bike racks that we bought, the 5 bike racks, which Judd's committee is going to take a look at and see if we can find a place for that. They're not necessarily sheltered bicycle parking, but at least we are adding some bicycle parking to the city's inventory. The next one is around the pedestrian plan, and the pedestrian committee, whoops, has been very busy. Oops, sorry. And they have gathered the information. They did do a survey early this fall, and are on their way to actually beginning to try to implement some of the issues that came up. So they're definitely on target. And the third one is, oops, I'm sorry, that was, yeah. I'm sorry, the fourth one is around the POCD. And we did have Steve Kleppen here. And as I say, we're sort of in a holding pattern, waiting for those other groups that are in charge of those various tasks, and you have them in the agenda. So we're basically doing what we can do. Community outreach events, that's another area that's been a little challenging this year. But Barbara has all of the printed materials and the backpacks that we hand out when we have tables at events. So she's all ready to go. All she needs is somebody to have some events that we can piggyback on. And we did distribute the 2-sided bicycle and pedestrian safety cards. So we're doing what we can to get information out that we would normally be handing out at the events. And the other part of 5, which Tanner just spoke about, is the website content and our Facebook page, and he's been doing a fantastic job at keeping that all refreshed. And we have had some articles, so we, I think, are on target with our 4 news releases throughout the year. On the grant side, Audrey did apply for a grant, which unfortunately we did not get, but our plan says we're going to apply for a minimum of 2, and I'm sure Audrey will find at least 1 more that we can apply for sometime during this fiscal year.
I need some project ideas. So dream on.
Okay. Alrighty, and I think that's it. Did anybody have any additions or suggestions? Okay, and I think it is valuable to review the strategic plan at least once a quarter and remind ourselves of what it is we were supposed to be doing. So we will continue to do that, and when we get to the fourth quarter, we also will start to put together a strategic plan for the next fiscal year that begins on July 1st. Okie dokie. Get back to the agenda here. And last but not least is Teresa with the walking update.
Between January and COVID, I don't have a lot to report on this. We haven't done a lot of work on our Norwalker programming, but we still have translations of maps in progress. And Julia and I are, trying to plan for the spring when the weather gets a little bit nicer.
Okay, well, that's probably good enough. So, given the weather today, I don't think too many people are thinking about walking. maybe sledding. And hi, Colin. Alrighty, so that brings us to old business, and the first piece is Sam with the placing of the equipment that we bought at the last end of last fiscal year.
Yep, can I not share? Oh, yes, I can. There we go. I've been using Teams too much. Give me 1 second. I made just a quick and dirty presentation to help. Let's see, why isn't this allowing me? I think I don't have certain permissions to allow me to share. Are you able to allow me to share, Nancy?
Yeah, I think
you should be able to share.
Let me see. Yeah, whenever I select share screen, it just gives me a blank little window. Let me, how should I do this? Maybe I will quickly email my presentation to Tanner. Tanner, does your screen sharing work? You're muted.
Yes, I imagine it does.
Yes, it's so
Here,
weird.
just test.
Okay, well, tell you what, while you two are doing that, why don't we go on to the Highland? Oh, there it is.
There's the next
No.
Facebook post I'm composing.
That's just
Okay.
Tanner's.
So
Yeah, if you'll email.
Sam, while you and Tanner are getting that queued up, why don't we go on to the Highland Avenue project and then we'll come back to you?
Perfect. That's
Okay.
great. Yep.
Okay, Judd, and also Greg.
Oh, let's see. Okay? Hang on here. So Greg, I was maybe you got a call too. I got a call a few weeks ago from Mike Mushak.
Yes, I heard all about it.
Okay. And he asked me to look at page 36 of the 2012 pedestrian and bicycle plan for Norwalk. Are you familiar with that?
I am, yes, and that's kind of where the project originated from, originally.
Yep. So I'm not clear. Are we getting Sharrow's?
Excuse me, Judd, do you want to let the rest of us know briefly what that page says?
Yeah, let me see. Hang on here. How's that? Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, so this is page 36 from the 2012 pedestrian bikeway transportation plan. If anybody wants a copy, let me know. It's got a lot of him, good information on it. But Greg, you're familiar with it, and
Yes.
You see my mouse, I take it.
I don't see your mouse, no.
Okay, but if you look on the diagram on the left is Brian McMahon, and so they were recommending 4-foot bike lanes,
Yes.
11-foot travel lanes.
Yep.
Are we going to have at least 4-foot striped shoulders there?
No, we are not. So another thing with this thing is 4-foot bike lanes. I mean, you look at the Connecticut state guidelines, you look at NACTO, it's 5-foot bike lanes minimum
Yep.
against the curb always.
No, I know that. That's why, but I asked, you know, in some places in town, we have 5-foot striped shoulders like Seaview
Right.
Avenue. And I'm just wondering here, I kind of remember we're going to have 11-foot travel lane. I'm not asking for a designated bike lane, but are we going to have at least a striped shoulder?
We are going to have striped shoulders, but they're going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 feet because Highland Ave, the width varies all the way throughout pretty much the whole length. So when you have the southernmost end of where the buses turn in on Brian McMahon, it's about 28 feet.
Yep.
And then it gets to about 31 feet max as you go up towards Flax Hill.
Okay.
You're only looking about a third of a mile, if that, of about 30, at least 30 feet.
Yep.
Also, another thing on this plan doesn't show that we're also going to be adding the sidewalks, which was a major thing that was brought up from the surveys, that people wanted better accessibility for walkability, and the sidewalk width is going to take away some of that width of the street when we put the sidewalks in, because we're adding curbing, we're adding 5-foot walkways. Right now, it's just a small footpath there.
Right.
So, it's hard to determine how much we're actually going to lose, but we are going to lose some because you see the sidewalks now, they're pretty much non-existent on Highland.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what about, on the southern end where is it going to have shoulder stripes the entire length of the street?
So only from Knollwood up to Flax Hill is where this project is
Okay.
is targeted towards.
Okay.
Because we, even with this project, we're up there near the limit of our budget that has been allocated. So
Okay.
it's the investment, it was made into the sidewalks, and that's pretty costly. So but yeah, so we did the previous Safe Routes to School project was done on the more southern end towards Roten, and then now this one will be made up towards Brian McMahon and Brookside as well, going up towards Flax Hill.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess.
Judd, can I ask a question, Judd?
Yep.
Yep. Just because this came up in a in a phone call I received from a constituent on Golden Hill. Why are we moving the sidewalks into the street, or is there right of way to the property owner's side to expand the sidewalks? So I guess more clearly, why are we moving the sidewalks into the street when we could accommodate wider shoulders and potentially bicycle lanes, as opposed to using available right of way on the non-street side?
Good question. The right-of-way lines vary on Highland from the files that we have. Obviously, they're not exact, but they're pretty as accurate as you're going to get. It varies as you travel up Highland. So yeah, in one area that might work, but then the next street over, it won't work. So it's very difficult, and we're trying to accommodate as much as possible, but it's hard to say how much width we're actually going to lose. So Highland is a kind of a hard spot to determine the right of way width going, the entire length, because it varies so much.
What do you mean by it varies?
Well, because it's not just a straight, it's not just a straight line all the way up. You go one street, it's on one path, and then the next street up after, say for instance, Soundview, it could be 2 feet over from where it was on the southern end of Soundview Avenue.
Now, just my ignorance in terms of how public works and CONDOT projects work, don't you have to make sure that you have a certified boundary line to do that work, and not just GIS lines that may not be accurate, to your point? So who takes the step of certifying where that right of way is and how much space is actually available in the end of at the construction phase of the project?
Well, we're gonna be engaging with DPW and, finalizing the designs and moving forward with our designs that we have for them and then working alongside with them. So we had our drafter at DPW draw it up and he has the most accurate lines as you can get, as far as right of way. So, we'll probably have to do a field review study and go from there. Also on the southern approach side, you have, on the going towards Devil's Garden, you just have the guardrail on that side as well. So there's really no movement on that side as far as the street width. And then you start pushing it more to the other side where you have residential houses. That's when you're going to start running into issues as well.
Judd, could you
Okay.
stop sharing so I can see the rest of the people? Thanks.
Okay.
I mean, we can go back and discuss, as we move forward, but, this is kind of the, what we're providing is, as much as we can with what the availabilities we have with the right of way and the sidewalks that are, that we're going to install.
Greg, when is proposed construction start?
Well, our plan is to put it out within the next couple months to bid. Our hope is to get it done this year. We'll have to discuss to make sure if there's any incoming projects, whether they're, gas or utility projects on Highland that may affect with, coming up within the next year. So we have to engage them and see what other projects, if there's any, and we can just do it in coordination with them so we don't waste any time or effort, before they do a project that they need to, that they need to do.
Okay. And then as far as Sharrow's south of McMahon, the cutoff, so to speak, for that is 6,000 cars a day.
Yeah, we like to keep it around that. Yeah.
Okay, because according to that page I was just sharing, it was in 2012. They're saying the average daily count is 4,000 to 5,000. So if that is correct, we could do Sharrow south of McMahon.
Well, we'll have to discuss that internally because we, as far as this project is concerned with the money allocated.
Yeah, no, not with this money. I mean, the
Yeah.
commission has money left over. I mean, we didn't, Nancy, we didn't use anything in
Right.
2020. So, I mean, we could pay for the Sharrows there.
Right. I mean, listen, like I said, this is what we've come up with from looking at surveys and hearing what people had to say and, also discussing with, the group at Brian McMahon, the teachers and the principals. And they said, we want, the kids want better walkability.
Sure. And that's great. But the Sharrow thing will take up on the bike routes. I'm not saying that that's going to be part of this project. I understand.
No, I understand what you're saying. I understand.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe we can defer that discussion to the bike
Yes.
subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, that's probably a time for a better discussion for
Okay.
that.
I just wanted to get an understanding. I wasn't sure. Now that you're talking about it again, I remember where you said it stopped. So, okay. I think
Probably want to hold off on the Sharrows on the road because the road's in pretty bad shape now and it's going to get repaved in the near future. So.
Yep. Okay. Well, yeah. When it gets, we'll put it on the list for the bike routes. So.
And Mike, can you update on reviewing 10.5-foot lanes on that segment of
yeah, I mean,
road?
We'll hold the 10.5-foot lanes in the shoulder of Vary. I mean, if you guys are comfortable with that, I think the objective here is to get a ADA compliant sidewalk in is the main objective of this project without encroaching on private property.
Yeah.
So,
Mike, do I understand you're comfortable with the 10.5-foot lanes?
Yeah, we're fine. It's a pretty much straight away, so the 10.5-foot lane will be should be fine.
I mean, that's great, because in some places, I understand the road varies. Instead of having a 3-foot shoulder or a 2-foot shoulder, we'll have a 2.5-foot shoulder.
Yeah.
And if you're on a bike, every little
It's a big difference.
makes a big difference. And I understand it can't be a signed bike lane or anything like that, but it really helps.
Yeah, I think you want to stay away from signing it because, I mean, you have children on there and it's
Yep.
not a code, and
Yep.
you don't want to have bike lanes that come and go along a corridor. You want to keep some type of consistency.
Sure. Okay. I'm okay with that.
Okay,
The only thing that's coming up is that Yankee Gas or Eversource may be putting a gas line on Highland Avenue. So we have to coordinate the two and decide whether we do this now or wait for them to put the gas line in.
Good. Okay, Nancy.
all right, thank you, Judd and Greg. That all sounds very positive.
Yep. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, Sam and Tanner, are you guys?
I actually went out of the meeting, came back in, and now it works. So.
Oh,
I was going to
Okay.
tell you that. You probably joined through the public link.
I don't know what it was. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So Nancy 4,000 years ago tasked me with placing these things, and been very busy, but I went through a bit of an exercise in determining who we wanted to serve, what locales would help us achieve that, and then where in those locales we should place these fix-it stations. So just so everyone is aware, the Dero fix-it station is a permanent, and I say permanent because it's 4 bolts, but it is a fixed bicycle repair stand that contains all the essential tools that you would need to repair your bicycle. And thanks to Mike, we have also ordered a air pump 4, which will be a also permanent and modular pump to obviously inflate tires. Something that's interesting about the air pumps, and when I did a lot of research on this system and its placement, a lot of people mentioned that the air pump gets used more than anything because you have stroller tires, you have balls and other sports items. So I wasn't thinking that way initially. So that was an interesting note. So Norwalk is a pretty sprawling little town, and I kind of had to think what would be the general vicinity where we would place our first Dero fix-it stand, or potentially 2 or 3. And I did settle on this particular area of South and East Norwalk. Ignore the fact that my home is almost in the dead center of this, as indicated by that little icon. But the reason I think this is a great area to be exploring for the placement of the Dero fix-it stand is that it is more neighborhood-oriented infrastructure. So it's smaller roads, a little bit windier, and then it's also got the associated traffic. People drive really fast all over Norwalk, but in these little areas that are a bit more residential with more interspersed commercial entities, it seems that there is a wider proliferation of cyclists. So I mentioned that strong mix of residential and commercial. There are more people doing more things on bikes in this area. And then this is also an area that is accessible to low income neighborhoods, which I think, as far as a social deed, is something we should support. So the first location is not far from a location we were originally talking about. I was thinking, so this is not, I'm not saying this is the first location we should place this. I've narrowed it down to essentially 2. I just wanted to walk you guys through the thinking. So Constitution Park is right across from, well, it's against the Washington Street Bridge, and it's across from the original place that we thought we would locate this. Now the walk bridge project, I think, will probably cause a lot of turmoil in this area going forward. I don't know if the Constitution Park side of the river would be included in that, but it is a pretty underused but nice space. There is this artist installation there, and it does have some infrastructure such as little paths and benches, and is a nice.
Sam,
Pardon?
I biked past it the other day, and the installation is gone. Like
Yes,
those
it is
cubic containers.
gone. Yeah, these are the only pictures I could find online.
Do you know what happened?
I don't know what happened, but what the installation does tell me is that the city has some leniency in terms of the use of this park.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, that might be a good spot to place it. However, as shown by this previous photo, it's not the most visible place. So there's pros to that, in that I don't think people really always want to be completely exposed when working on their bicycle, but we do want the thing to get noticed. So I mentioned some pros and cons here. It is along a commuter route. This Washington Street Bridge to Seaview Ave is a major artery for beach traffic via bicycle. COVID has made this spike. It is also a commuter route for people who work and live in Sono and Eno, or vice versa. It is also one of the better ways to get to like the other downtown Norwalk from over near where Judd lives. So it's there's quite a bit of cross traffic through here. And then I like this location because it is accessible to low-income residential, and then also small business and median income residential. The second location is Calf Pasture Beach. I believe that Judd and Tanner both supported the idea of using Calf Pasture Beach. I think there's a lot of pros to this. It is visible to a very diverse population. Everybody uses Shady Beach and Calf Pasture Beach. It is most accessible to our recreational riders in our community. And it also is a great location for demonstratable use. There is no way people will not notice that this is there, and that people are, and especially when people use it, right? Which is, I think, a really important aspect of its placement. So that is why, and I found an image. There is a little playground right there, and this area is frequently where someone will walk before selecting a spot on the beach. Or if you are on a bicycle, this is about as far into the beach as you will go, because it is somewhat paved.
Yeah, we would, if we want to put it in at the beach, we would need to talk to Nick Roberts, who's the director of Recreation and Parks, as to where he would allow us to put it. The only problem is if it's too close to the playground, then you have the little kiddies.
That's with it, yeah. I
So
don't think they would do much damage. I'm honestly more concerned with the older kiddies, but the other thing that's nice about Calf Pasture is I go there all summer. I like it a lot. It is also, though, where I see all of the wheelie kids all summer meet up to just pull huge wheelies down. That I think it is Calf Pasture Road, and I do think that while I can't vouch for their misgivings in traffic, I certainly do think that we should support them in engaging bicycle transportation, and a lot of them probably could use some help when it comes to maintaining their bikes, as there are no bike shops in Norwalk.
Mm-hmm.
Location C was Oyster Shell Park. I don't really love this location. It is along the NRVT, which has obviously some serious pros to it. And it kind of aligns with this, the social infrastructure. Oyster Shell Park is a well-used location between the playground. We actually have bike races there. It's a nice place, and it really is an interesting part of Sono, because there's a lot of loft residences there, and it's still accessible to the other areas, but it does sort of kind of become this secret thing that only caters to Sono, really, because it's hard to see. And then the final location, this was definitely proposed by Tanner. It's not the final, there's actually two finals. This was the Sono train station. This is actually the only location I did a bit of a stakeout at, and it was kind of a bad time to do it because it has been cold out. But there are actually very few people who ride their bicycles to and from the train in the cold. So, you know, but the other thing I noticed is it doesn't really, the bicycles there are in a state of disarray to begin with. And it also doesn't really seem like people are coming from very far. So to me, the train station is not an excellent place to place this, because while it is noticeable, no one plans to go fix their own bike in their own commute. They really just plan to get to the train, right? So if they got to the train station in the first place, they did it to get to the train. And if the work stand is there, like maybe it'll get used on the tail end of their commute. But I wasn't very optimistic. And then Irving Freese Park is an interesting area because it bisects both Bernal Boulevard and what is that other road called?
Main Street?
Yeah, thank you. And this is another area. So this is not really within the initial big circle I proposed, but it is another area that I feel like could serve a wide array of people. So I would consider this location down the line for potentially a second station. So with all of that, I do think the Calf Pasture Beach Road is probably the best, because as our first Euro Fix-It station, I think it is important that it get realized, that our community develop some muscle memory around using it, around seeing it used. For that reason, I believe somewhere in the vicinity of Calf Pasture will be best.
Okay.
Do we have one or two?
We have one to start.
Yep. Yeah, could I, because we're down to 15 minutes and we have 4 more agenda items. If it's okay with the commissioners that are here, since you've given us something to think about, if people would be okay with tabling this till next month, and if you would send me your slide deck, I would distribute that with the agenda for next month. And this gives people a time to think about your pros and cons, and then come back next month and make a decision, if that's okay with the rest of the commissioners.
That's fine with me. I mean, I don't think like we're not holding up Mike's department with storing it, right?
Well, so far, Mike, they haven't tried to move it to your garage, right?
No, it's fine, and it's probably too cold to put it in anyway. Because
Yeah, I figured. Okay, great. Yeah, so Nancy, I'll send this to you right now. I may compress it a little bit, but
Sam, one question. Do you know, is it available as just a pump?
it is available as just a pump. You can buy one with a fixed pump welded to it, but there is a just a pump option.
Cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you very much, Sam.
No problem.
Okay, Christine, thank you very much. I think it was mostly you and Colin who put together the statement on Norden. And let me see if I can share my screen again here. And again, you all had this as part of the agenda. So did anybody have any suggestions for making any changes? And if not, do you feel comfortable with issuing this as a statement signed by the commission?
Yeah, I think it's fun, good the way it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think-
and
Sorry.
Audrey also made some edits, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Right, Audrey? Audrey?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it looks really good now. Really nice.
All right, well, thank everybody that worked on it, and I think since this is kind
Yeah.
of a formal thing, could we have, oh, let me stop sharing so I can see everybody here. Could we have a motion to send this into the planning commission?
I'll make a motion to submit the letter as is to
All
the
right.
planning commission.
Thank you, Colin.
Hey, Nancy?
Yep.
I received this postcard in the mail. I don't know if anybody else did, but it's the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association, and it's all about the proposal.
Mhm.
And it gives the person, Steve Kleppen, to email, I guess.
Yes, that's who I'm going to send it to.
Okay, perfect.
All right, since you didn't get to second the approval of the minutes, would you like to second this thing?
Okay, second. And thanks everyone for helping out with it.
Okay, all those in favor, say, stick your
Aye.
hand up, whatever. Okay, thank you. And then moving to new business, we have a bit of a problem. Let me get to it. Hang on a minute here. Let me- Okay, let me share my screen again. And again, this was in your agenda. This is Cliffview Avenue. It intersects Silvermine Avenue. Route 123 is down over here. And Cliffview Avenue was repaved this fall. And there was a crosswalk added right here across Cliffview where it intersects Silvermine. But unfortunately, due to some kind of a slip up, the ADA compliant ramps were not installed on either end of the crosswalk. And I did show you I did include some pictures of either end of the crosswalk. There's one end, oops, and there's the other end. So the problem is we can't do that. And that's the problem that we've had in, there are a zillion places in Norwalk where we would like to install crosswalks, but it's not just a simple matter of slapping the paint down and we're done. The ramps on either side are a bit on the pricey side. So at this point, our only choices are to ask the city to find the money to install the ADA compliant ramps on either end of this crosswalk, or to take the crosswalk out. And I've hemmed and hawed quite a bit, and I've talked to Colin about it as well. And Colin, I'm sure will feel free to speak for himself. As much as we would like to have crosswalks, this is not a heavily used area. And as you can see, there's not a, the sidewalk here is not in any way ADA compliant either. And the one on the other end is even worse. So my thinking is, if in fact the city has money to put ADA compliant ramps, there are a lot of much busier intersections where it would make sense to put them. So as much as it would pain me to ask the city to paint that crosswalk out, that's the direction I'm leaning. So I would certainly open it up to Colin or anybody else who would like to make a comment.
What the cost of a ramp Or both
Mike,
ramps?
you have that off the top of your head?
I kind of,
It's, it's,
go ahead, Mike.
yeah, it's probably around, something like this would be probably somewhere in the, to do them on both sides, maybe around $2,000.
And if to remove the sidewalk, are you gonna grind the pavement or paint over it or?
Yeah, you would have to black out the lines, but the more I think about it, Nancy,
Mhm.
we might actually be obligated to put ramps in there anyway, because we touched the road.
Okay.
Yeah, but now we may actually want to look at doing it to cross Silver Mine as well, because
Well,
Yeah, I was going to say of the four crossings at that intersection, that's probably the least used.
yeah,
And it would make more sense to make it, make one across Silver Mine.
yeah, I mean, is the money gonna come from our budget, from the city? What,
we probably would either take it out of DPW or TMP money, not out of the bike walk money.
okay.
Well, I
Mike,
believe the bike walk line is limited to signage and road markings.
okay.
And a ramp doesn't really fall under that.
But Mike, you think because you guys paved the road, you have to upgrade the ramps?
Yeah, they're pretty specific on that. Once you do almost any type of work on a roadway, you would have to upgrade the ramp. Somehow it was missed, I would probably assume,
Yeah,
but
I mean, the crosswalk was not there before.
Yeah.
So it was not a matter of they paved the road and then they painted back in a crosswalk that had been there. This is a brand new crosswalk.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess just to throw some of my comments to Nancy, you know, in the public realm, it's like I think that crosswalks and walking are vitally important to neighborhoods, but in particular, I think they're vitally important to much denser neighborhoods, and we have a lot of deficient connections in areas that are in much greater need and would get much higher use, I think, than this area. So as much as I love seeing it, I don't think it's a good waste of public funds. And I absolutely hate driving around and seeing installations like this where there's a ramp to nowhere. You know, there's one that I sent to Nancy that was it's probably about 5 to 10 years old, maybe a little in that neighborhood on Grumman in Newtown, where there's an ADA ramp to an ADA ramp in the middle of grass, and there's no and there's a traffic light. So I mean, I completely get that these are part of regulations that people are following, but I feel like it's unfortunately a problem with the regulation, and in this instance, it was something that wasn't existing and didn't need to be there. And I much rather would have seen this go in, in any number of places in, the Green neighborhood or East Norwalk or South Norwalk or, downtown Norwalk or, pretty much anywhere else where there's some semblance of a sidewalk network that already exists, and a high quality one at that. I think putting these facilities in areas that are low quality footpaths is not really in our best interest, and not good for the long-term investment. So I think there's other things that should be explored for these locations.
Does anybody else have an opinion?
Well, no, but I mean, I agree with you, Colin, but it sounds almost like we're at the point of no return, like the city has to do it.
Yeah,
Sounds
and
like-
and if that's what it is, then that's what it is at this point. But I think the bigger question is how this got out there in the first place and what mechanisms were being used to evaluate the need, and putting an investment that's very expensive, as it is with 2 curb ramps and whatever else is necessary to make this compliant, only to serve a couple thousand feet of asphalt sidewalk that's deficient and doesn't comply is kind of silly, because we don't have $1 million in sidewalk budget to do all that and make it comply.
Tanner?
Yeah, we're almost out of time, and the last agenda item is mine, and I'm happy to kick it to next month because I think that I'll have more to share next month than this month. So,
Okay.
I agree with Colin's argument on the condition that the premise is true, which is that it's kind of one or the other. That like if we only had money for one crosswalk, I would agree that this should not be it. But I want to, just for the sake of a healthy discussion, challenge that premise. I think the city should, in an ideal world, have enough money to put in a crosswalk in, everywhere where we need one. And I don't think we can say that we don't need a crosswalk here. There's already a sidewalk, and I think I don't know anything about this neighborhood in particular, but I imagine people are using it, if not as much as in other parts of the city. Also, do we know exactly where we would put other crosswalks? Do we have a list of what our 10 highest priority crossings are? Like if the city comes back to us and says, you have budget for 10, then we should figure out what 10 those are.
Audrey?
Yeah, we do. In the presentation that Barbara and I put together, and we shared it also with Greg Poselli, we have identified many intersections, both on the state roads and the areas of the city that are considered by survey results rather unsafe in terms of disrupted sidewalks, where they start on one side and then they end and then they pick it up on the other side, or for whatever reason, either broken or non-existent sidewalks and crosswalks. So we've done quite a lot based on some data. So I'm not saying that we've identified every single instance, but quite a number that are ailing. Yeah.
Well, would it make some sense, Mike, for you to talk with your friends in DPW, and perhaps we can talk about this a little bit more next month?
Sure.
But personally, I think if the city were able, to add another crosswalk at that intersection, going across Silvermine Avenue, where there is a sidewalk, then maybe that would make a little more sense. Because then people could cross Cliffview, cross Silvermine, and get down to 123, or obviously do the same in the other direction. Or they could take Silvermine to, I forget what the road is on the other side, because on the other side of Silvermine Avenue from Cliffview, it's called something else. But at least then, you could get around all 4 sides of that particular intersection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it makes that area that much more walkable and connect.
Yes.
So.
And Route 123 does have a ball field and a bunch of stores. So it is a sort of a commercial area.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mike, if you would perhaps, think about that, and if you want to talk to Audrey or Colin or Tanner or whomever, and maybe we can make a better recommendation next month.
No problem. We'll do that.
Thanks a lot. So Tanner, since we're going to defer your bike and ped data item till next month, would somebody like to move for adjournment?
Sorry, Nancy.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I should have emailed you this, but it's kind of important. And the League of American Bicyclists, I put it in the chat, is having their annual bike summit, and it's virtual, February 28th to March 3rd. It's $50, but I think because Mike signed us up as an organization, anybody maybe can go. I can call and find out and then email everybody. But there's some really important discussions going on, like a panel about communicating active transportation benefits to state DOTs. This is a national event. There's a discussion on slow self-enforcing streets at slower speeds. So I think we all might be interested in this. I work, it starts on Sunday and goes to Wednesday, but it's only $50. So it might be worth our while. If anybody wants to join, Judd, I know you might be interested. Tanner, Sam, Audrey, especially Colin, if you can. That's it, sorry.
Yeah, if you want to just, if you could just send that around, because as long as we don't discuss it via email, you can send information like that. That would be great. Thanks,
Okay,
Christine.
motion to adjourn.
Wait, oh, wait,
Okay,
sorry. Can I, Nancy, I just wanted to catch up on one thing because it was the only other item that I really wanted to comment on tonight was the, I missed the bike rack that was being proposed somewhere, the wavy one.
Oh, right. We didn't talk about it.
We didn't talk about that. Okay. Is that in danger of being installed? Because I can hold that for next meeting if it's not.
oh, yeah, no, it's, Paul is just putting together the final plan. But you know what, why don't you just pick up the phone and talk to Paul?
Okay,
Yeah,
I can do that.
I talked to him about where he plans to put it. So in front of
All
the
right.
poly barn.
Yeah, my concern was more what it looks like, but
You're
and
not-
how it's used.
You're not fond of that one.
No, it pretty much goes against the recommendations of every bike rack every bike parking thing I've read. So,
All right. Do you want to send me some information on that? If you have
Sure.
it handy?
no problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Colin. So Christine moved for adjournment. Do we have a second?
Yep, and I second Colin's opinion on the wavy bike rack, but as motion to adjourn.
Okay, well, maybe we can.
Second.
So, okay, Colin, tell you what, I'll talk to Paul and see if he can come to our next meeting. And if you guys want to talk to him in the interim, that would be fine too. But you're not so concerned with the placement of the rack as what the rack itself looks like.
And how usable it is.
Yeah, the usefulness of it. I mean, there was only a picture. I didn't see a plan, a sighting location. So I might have an opinion on that too, but I don't have enough information at this point.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I've read something on that rack and I think they call it a 6 or 7 bicycles, and I don't see that, but anyway.
Okay.
We'll talk about it.
Alrighty, well, we're a little over tonight, but I think we got a whole lot talked about. So thank you all for your good work, and we'll see you again next month.
Okay.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much.
Christine.
Bye-bye.